They were. He's on.
Yeah, why not? Thanks. One page, that's the first time in a while.
But tomorrow I will go back and look at those avenues.
Yeah, he said he was hammering for a while, and he was just curious, was anything else? And it was, anyway, thank you for getting that for me.
What they will pay us for it. I'll start working on that. See.
Part of that's capital too.
We got till
Yeah, had all that algae.
October 30th.
Was all piled up in a little outlet.
Yeah, like,
And I put a dam up, we cleaned that out, then we went and cleaned.
And y'all know Julian's not
Yeah,
gonna
it
be
does
here, right?
feel
Okay, we're ready when you are.
well, you're right. Like a quick sequence. Doesn't it? Here.
I'm gonna call to order the city council workshop for the city of Dunnellon on October 2nd, 2023. Would everybody please stand for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a moment of silence. Amen. Okay. Mandy, would you like to call?
Mariansky,
Here.
Councilman Lehman,
Here.
Councilperson Mendoza is absent tonight. Dan Smith, Finance Officer.
Here.
Chad Ward, Public Works Manager.
Here.
Kelly Wyan, Community Development.
Here.
Chief Scaglione,
Here.
Lieutenant Bray.
Here.
City Attorney, I'm sorry, Michelle Leonard, Assistant Clerk. Here. You weren't on the list. City Attorney Andrew Hand.
I'm here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the city's website, City Hall Bulletin Board on Monday, September 25th, 2023.
Okay. First item on the agenda is public comments. I want to remind everybody, we have 2 times during the agenda tonight where public can make comments. If you limit your comments to 3 minutes and address them to the council, I would greatly appreciate it. The other thing is, I want to remind everybody, there's an exit at the back of the room and one to the right of where y'all are sitting. If there's an emergency, those are the exits you should use to leave. Is anybody signed up to speak tonight?
Art Jones.
Art Jones, that's right.
Hello, everybody. Art Jones, 12163. Yeah, I'm here tonight, as you know, I put in an application. Fill the vacancy for city council, and I'm withdrawing that application. Put it in because I thought no one else was going to put one in. And somehow you know, we could make it work, but I had some reservations, because I'm actually, my plate's pretty full with the restoration project. And I'm also involved in a restoration project down in Just River. It would be a lot. I mean, somehow I was thinking, you know, maybe we do it, but luckily we had another candidate apply. I got to look at his resume and talk to him on the phone. And it seemed like he would be a much more candidate. You know, he could really just concentrate and live with everybody. So I'm going to draw on that. And still here to work with everybody with the council. And the other thing I like about not being on the council, I get to talk to everybody. I'm not, you know, sunshine rules to everyone. So, of course, that I was a little worried about the.
So, but thank you all for the service you have been doing there.
Well, I appreciate you stepping forward and, yeah, the sunshine laws are fun to deal with.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Art.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
You know, I'd just like to make a comment. I know everybody knows. Art, I really appreciate the fact that you realize that this is not just a hour a week job type thing. Because one of my reservations was going to be, once I met it, know how many hours it actually takes with all the irons you have in the fire, how much time is really going to be able to get spent on
Yeah,
it.
thank
So,
you, Jen. And I've heard that you put in a bunch of hours and really appreciate that.
right.
I mean, everybody, it's like, I feel that this is actually a good council.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
appreciate you recognizing that and not adding to the pain when you're
Right.
not able to be able to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have anyone else signed up and I don't have anyone on Zoom.
Anybody in the audience like to speak at this time? I will remind you, you can speak at the end of the meeting if you'd like to. Okay,
One thing I would like to request, Mayor,
Yep.
is to move up number 8 to the beginning of the meeting after the Dunnellon Chamber of Business Association report, so they don't have to keep Kelly here.
okay. I don't have a problem with that, y'all. No, okay. All righty. Okay, board reports. Brenda?
Brenda Diarville, 11661 Camp Drive. Dunnellon Planning Commission, just a brief report. We did have at our last meeting an applicant for a new business in town that'll be coming before you. And it was a request for a change in the zoning code because they are intent to purchase where the Masonic lodges and put in a business. It'll have kickboxing and classes for children and wellness classes, weight loss classes. So it looks pretty exciting. They really won't have to do much at all to just move in and use it. And I think they might potentially apply for a CRA grant for having some parking maybe instead of having to use the grass. So that's
Okay.
coming. And I did not choose to apply for council because I knew how many hours it would take.
It would have been good.
I appreciate that. And that's on Powell Road, that Masonic Hall, right? Okay, good. Okay. Anyone else have a board report? Okay. Dunnellon Chamber. Okay, Judy.
Okay, we have a few new members. First of all, I'm Judy. I'm the director of the Dunnellon Chamber. We have some new members. We have the Lions Club of Dunnellon has come back. And Best Life Realty. We also have a bunch of events coming up, and I'm going to go ahead and skip down to October 6th because that's the closest date. We have a ribbon cutting for Studio 118 Art Studio at 1 p.m. And the address for that is 11871 Illinois Street. On that same day, October 6th, there's a Bricks Social at Bricks and Mortar Real Estate from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Ocala office, 520 East Fort King Street in Ocala. There's also on that date, the Business After Hours at Advanced Family Hearing at 6 p.m. The address for that is 20093 East Pennsylvania Avenue. On the 7th is our first Saturday market in the park from 10 to 2 at Ernie Mills Park, 11899 Bostic Street. On 10/7 is also Fall on the Farm at Cannon Farms from 10 to 4. The address for that is 11801 Southwest 180th Avenue Road. And it's also on the 8th from 10 to 4. Same address. The 11th, we have a oil painting, Paint Like Bob Ross, from 12 to 4 at Rainbow Springs Art, and that's $60. And the address for that is 20804 West Pennsylvania Avenue. On the 12th, we have the Plain Air Group, Create the Outdoors at Rainbow Springs Art. The cost for that is $55, and that's going to run from 11 to 1 p.m. And the address is 20804 West Pennsylvania Avenue. On the 14th, Spar Building Supply has their farm swap from 8 to 12. 2918 West Dunnellon Road. Page 2 here. There's a lot going on this month. There's a lot this month. On the 14th, Fall on the Farm at Cannon Farms again from 10 to 4. 11801 Southwest 180th Avenue Road. 1014 Abstract Art Using Color and Composition. That's a $40 class, and it runs from 1 to 4 at Rainbow Springs Art, 20804 West Pennsylvania Avenue. On the 14th as well is the Two Rivers Music Festival and Food Truck Rally from 5 to 10 at Ernie Mills Park, 11899 Bostic Street. On the 15th, Fall on the Farm again at Cannon Farms from 10 to 4, 11801 Southwest 180th Avenue Road. On the 18th is Create a Stunning Land, Rainbow Springs Art, 20804 West Pennsylvania Avenue. The class is $45, and the materials are another $11, and that class runs from 6 to 8:30 p.m. The 21st and the 22nd are Fall on the Farm at Cannon Farms again from 10 to 4, both days. 11801 Southwest 180th Avenue Road. On the 22nd and the 28th, again, Fall on the Farm from 10 to 4, 11801 Southwest 180th Avenue Road. The 28th is the Spar Building Supply Farm Swap from 8 to 12, 2918 West Dunnellon Road. On the 29th is Fall on the Farm at Cannon Farms again from 10 to 4, 11801 180th Avenue Road. And on the 31st, the Greater Dunnellon Historical Society Museum will be open from 9 to 12. And their address is 12061 South William Street. Also, I'd like to add, I probably forgot to put it in here. On the 12th, we have a ribbon cutting for the Dunnellon Police Department at 10 a.m. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Now, Kelly, going to do the CRA grant policy review.
So back in September, I handed you all the revised CRA grant policy that I wrote up. And some things were discussed, but I heard various feedback on other things. So I wanted to see if anybody wanted me to finalize something into a document that you could actually adopt during the council meeting. So as far as the monetary award structure, which is the biggest thing, we did discuss commercial grants going up to 25,000. Is that everybody's approval, or did you want to scale that down and keep residential up to 5,000?
Mhm.
So Wally says yes.
That's what we discussed, I
Uh-huh.
remember. And seems like the CRA, if I remember, right now fairly substantial amount in that fund. I don't know. I think the business should be more than 5. You know, whether we go to 25 or 10 or 15. I think it should be a little more because businesses are going to be larger. They're going to have a lot more expense they need to do. And again, they have to pay for it and get reimbursed. That's just my thought.
I agree. I think 25 would be a big outlay. I would say maybe 15 because it's about 3 times the size of a residential. And then make it, there's a provision that you can have like up to 2, and the second would be limited to 10. So like, to put a cap on it, so we don't have somebody doing 2 or 3 continuous projects to where the city ends up paying for most of their rehab.
So, okay, so a cumulative grant for commercials, we'll say up to 15,000 cumulative.
Yeah.
So if they submit 2 apps,
Yeah.
it cannot exceed a total of 15.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think we should. Let's try 15. And just see how that goes. I'm trying to remember, we did have a number of grants last year. But again, those were residential. And I think there's some businesses that really would maybe take advantage of this if they knew there was $15,000 out there they could spend to help spruce up their place or fix up some things. And again, remember, they have to spend the money to get the money.
Right.
I think that's more realistic, because when you look at what Chad gave us for the estimate for painting the Rainbow Springs, it's like for $5,000 in a business, that's like part of the job. Whereas now we've made it to where they can get most of the job done, substantially underwritten.
Right. Okay. All right.
Which leads into the second point. Prior, one property, same owner, applying for the same, another grant. So did I hear you right, Wally, when you said, they could come back, but cumulatively, I misheard.
But if it's one property
Mhm.
and one owner, I think it ought to be 15.
One grant.
If it's one owner and has 2 separate businesses or 2 separate, I think they could apply for it twice. That's my thought.
Yeah.
What do y'all think?
Yeah, I think that the one owner and the one property, because you don't want somebody every year saying, well, I can renovate a property every year. I'll just do it here, do it here, do it here. And somebody ends up with $45,000 or $50,000, and then other people are lacking too, because we have to look for the fact that maybe somebody's going to start using this. And if we have 5 of them during the year, that could end up being almost $100,000, which is a substantial part of the CRA budget.
Right.
So we want to spread it out, and that would be the incentive and the limit.
Right. You okay with that?
We need to talk to the chief.
I just have a question. So if that property changes hands and a new business owner comes in, can that new business owner then apply for a grant for that same piece of property?
Yeah,
Yeah, I just think,
Why not? What if it's a different business?
Why not? Because I get in cahoots with somebody else, okay, and next thing you know, there's 4 of us that have transferred this property. Got all kinds of people that get LLCs, but the financiers are behind the scenes, so I can
Sure.
transfer my LLC to somebody else, do whatever.
So, so up to $15,000 per property, regardless of ownership.
Unless we put maybe a time frame on it, within 5 years, something like that. Something that would discourage what I just explained.
somebody would abuse it. I see what you're saying. Yeah, maybe that's what we need to do, is one per property, and then after 5 years, they can come back, or a new owner could come back.
Is that applied toward commercial and residential?
No,
Just commercial.
just commercial. That's my thought.
yeah. I think that we would be better putting the money into the commercial, because as the commercial starts looking better, then the residential is going to become more attractive to where the price of the homes would go up, because people say, hey, the businesses look nice, I want to move in there. So
Sure.
then the price of the houses will go up, and
Yeah.
And I would suggest maybe 3 years.
I've got a 3, I've got a 5.
I got a 5. What do you think, Tim?
I still like the 5,
Let's stick
if
with
a-
5.
we need to know if a business is going to be successful too. So we need to know that we've invested in a business that is meeting the expectations of being successful.
Very good.
And do you want to put a limit on the number of grants in the fiscal year? Both residential and commercial? I mean, do you want to set like, I think with last year, we had 100,000
And we-
for the residential.
And we have
Oh,
100,000
and-
this year.
And what's that?
We have 100,000 total this year.
Okay, so do you want to? I don't know. This is if you wanted to say a certain portion of that money could be allocated just for commercial and another portion for residential. It's just something to think about.
It's broken out that way in the budget, 50-50 residential,
Okay.
50 commercial, but it could really go for either. It just
Yeah.
depends on what's approved. It doesn't have to, you don't have to have 50 for commercial. You could have 75 if we happen to get that many grants or that much in requests. So it can be moved between the two lines.
Okay,
So what you're saying when you say 100,000, we have 100,000 budgeted in the
Budgeted.
CRA for grants?
Correct.
Okay. How much do you recall offhand, how much we gave out last year in grants?
I think it was 35.
35.
I'd have to look. I'm
No,
sorry.
okay, I mean, just a rough estimate.
It was a number of grants though.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember approving
Yeah.
a number of them.
Right.
There were 5,000.
bunch of fives, right?
Yes. And that was just to spur interest.
Right.
Yeah,
So now maybe there is some interest to start with a larger dollar amount.
yeah.
It can always be moved back, during the year, scale it back. Could do what we did 2 years ago.
Yeah, why don't we start with this?
Yeah, that's where I
5
was at.
for residents, 15 for businesses and cap it at 100 and see what happens.
Right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Sorry to keep
And
changing on you, Kelly, but that's all right.
tree removal. Do you
Mhm.
see that as an appropriate use of the grant funds for tree removal on the visible part of the property? From the road?
Now, are we doing it from the status of making of a dead, make the lot look better, or is a way to supplement? To assist homeowners, because removing trees, some of them are very large, it can be very expensive.
So it would only be for tree removal, which that in itself is a very in-depth analysis of the tree and the type and all that. So
Mhm.
if it's a viable tree, it won't get approved for removal.
Right.
Perhaps tree trimming, but we're talking about tree removal only for the grant.
I'm in no right now, but I mean, have we seen many come through?
Yeah.
We got
so-
bombarded this year by a lot of city trees and it hit us hard.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
very expensive and there have been quite a number of residential tree removal applications in the last few months.
Right.
And based on an arborist letter that I read, it's just that point in time where
Mhm.
most of these trees are reaching
Right.
the end of their life based on the
Right,
soil
right.
conditions in the area. So.
I'm
they're
myself,
dying.
I'm a no on that one.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't like that.
okay. We'd already discussed that you're willing to meet as often as needed. That you will approve reimbursement and grant requests.
Mhm.
And you do not wish to have applicants present for reimbursement requests.
Mhm. Unless they want to be there.
Right,
Right.
right. They'll be there for the grant request
Right.
portion,
Right.
but for the reimbursement,
Yeah.
I'll show you the pretty photos of the finished
Right,
work and
right, right.
everything. So,
Okay.
and that's all I had on that.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying on top of this. I'll forget it. All right. Is that all you have? All right. Okay, let's go back to number 4, Blue Run Park discussion. I know when we were talking about doing this, a month or so ago, we were talking about having, a commissioner here along with Jim Couillard to discuss Blue Run Park. We later decided that since the need for them to know that the city had decided not to fund the bathroom at Blue Run Park anymore, other than the original commitment that we made of like $30,000, of which we spent most of it. that we really didn't need them here, but we wanted to come up with a list of really questions to ask them going forward for their input, since we operate that park jointly with them. And I have failed to come up with a list. I have a list mentally in my mind. I think we set what, the October 10th, 11th, whenever that meeting is when we're going to turn that list in. Is that what we agreed? I hope.
Well, if I can get it by the 11th, that would be good. And that
Okay.
way they have plenty of time to prepare for, if you want them to invite them to the one of the
Fine.
November meetings.
Okay. Yeah, I can get mine together. I think the biggest thing I had, and we kind of discussed it at one of the meetings, something I had read indicated that as far as the current management, Amanda, you corrected this, but what I had read was that Jim Couillard from Marion County and a member of the RRC were the two management members of this council for Blue Run Park. Now, you said that really isn't true. That was never ratified.
Board was never created.
Okay.
Formal board was never
Right.
created.
Well, that's something I think, if as long as the city's going to be involved in Blue Run Park, I think personally, a resident of this town needs to be on that board, if not a member of this council. And that's just my personal opinion, since we're funding part of this. And I think Marion County ought to have a representative, and I think RC, since they've been active in it, they need to have a representative too. But what I saw was we weren't currently represented, and I think that's wrong. I just think if we're going to have a council or whatever to supervise this, we need to have residents of the city be involved.
Well, it is a requirement of the management plan to develop
Mhm.
an advisory board for the park. But I don't know what board or group you're referring to, but it's not something that has been established by the city.
Okay. Well, I think, it probably can't just be the city because Marion County's involved
And
with
I
it
have to
too.
look at the management plan. I don't recall whether or not it spells out membership.
I thought it did, and maybe I read so much many months ago on Blue Run Park that may have just not been my confusion. I felt like that's what it said, but if it didn't, and I think we need to establish that somewhere in this Blue Run stuff. I know, Andrew, you have books on your desk. You say about Blue Run Park, and you should stay on top of this. So you may recall. But I remember that, and that's something that hit me since, I mean, we've seen the expenses of Blue Run Park in the budget now running somewhere 25, 35, $40,000 a year. And if we need a representative, if we're going to spend that kind of money, I think, on something like this. That's just me. We also learned, I think, the other day that the tuber exit, we had heard they were thinking, this was Marion County, thinking of having a second exit. And I think they have confirmed that, but they are going to continue to use Blue Run Park for the long exit. And I think we need to have some clarification of that and for how long they plan to do that. That's something else I think we need to get a handle on. Those are two things that just come to mind to me that we need to get a handle on. Yes, sir.
Happy to read the portion of the management plan that addresses
Okay.
the advisory committee. I just located it.
Okay.
Sorry. Short paragraph. Coordinated management of the park through the leadership of the city of Dunnellon is required to satisfy the interests of these three governmental bodies. Each will participate in the planning, capital, and this is talking about Office of Greenways and Trails, Marion County, and the city. Each will participate in the planning, capital development, and maintenance of the park. A map showing public lands is attached. And there's another reference to another map. This is the very pertinent part here. a management plan advisory committee consisting of representatives of the city of Dunnellon, Marion County Parks and Recreation, Rainbow Springs State Park, Rainbow Springs Aquatic Reserve, Office of Greenways and Trails, and Rainbow River Conservation, Inc. will be created and tasked to ensure the commitments presented are fulfilled.
Okay. That sounds like it lays it out, but you're saying the city's never done that. Okay. Well, that's something I think with Marion County, we need to address and probably get our arms around, in my opinion. You got some comments?
Yeah, going through the documents, and there's just a lot of conflicting stuff, that I guess because there's so many entities involved, first I was thinking maybe we need to have a council workshop to identify this document, conflicts with this document, with the next document, to get educated on what is what, so that we, and my feelings are, it should be somebody on this council that should represent it because we're tied to the budget. But somehow we need an education process on what the issues are between all the documents and all that before we sit down with any committee or any commissioner. Because, you mentioned a couple things that are issues, but there are far more than that in the documents. And like,
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna bring this up. I've got a relative of mine is on a council in Missouri. And he sent me a picture today of a bathroom that they installed on their river. But to change the concept, it was a modular bathroom, just like a mobile home, where they set it down, they built the foundations. I was wondering if anybody's discussed something like that, where instead of going with the full foundation, building a building, since I know we have to put in the lift station and everything, to look at something like that, which would be considerably cheaper, to where it would be a lot less expense and a lot less impact, we just set a foundation on. If I find the picture, I'll send it to you.
okay.
Yeah.
And just to kind of reiterate, that's just another problem component of this entire, all these different agreements.
Right.
It, is one of them, but there's just so many things in there like that need to be ferreted out. And stuff that may have made sense at the time doesn't anymore, type thing. And so I think at some point we need to have a workshop and go through these documents. Everybody review them, mark them up, come back, and they're not that hard to, not that encumbersome to go through, and then go through, agree what we see,
Mhm.
and get input from staff, council, public, everything else, so that we're making right decisions. And then if it makes sense to form the committee, but we're going in with some intelligence
Right.
and
Well,
not
good idea.
piecemeal type
Okay.
approach.
Okay. If we're gonna do that, I don't see how we could have the commissioner and Jim come over here in November then and discuss this, because what we're talking about is sit down and go through the documents we got and figure out what all we feel like needs to be addressed.
Do you want to schedule a special workshop maybe prior to your regular workshop?
Yeah, we could do that.
Start early in the day, say around 3 or so.
When is the next workshop? It's gonna
November
be
6th.
November 6th. Yeah, we could do it earlier in the day. I think if we all study it, I'm like you, I think we're gonna go at this thing cocked and it's not gonna run
Right.
out.
We're going
But
to
if
be right
we all
back,
spend time with, review it.
mark it up.
Mark it up, bring it in here, then we can, as a group, discuss it, have the public comments, figure out what all we need to address. I just felt like when I read these agreements, they just all seemed disjointed to me.
Right,
They
right.
didn't seem to flow together or even work together. But again, this was all done back in 2007 and 8, and a lot of councils have looked at this, changed it, done things with it, and obviously haven't really gone through and set everything up. But I think before we start doing that, we probably need to. So why don't we do that? Why don't we set up a meeting on the 6th to go over this plan?
You know, start at 3, 3:30, 4.
I'm good with anything.
Yeah, I'm good with either. The one that probably had the only problem would be Julianne. But 3 or 3:30 works for me.
Yeah.
I think if we give her a lead time, it should work with her,
Okay.
right? Okay,
Will that be 3 or 3:30?
either one of them works for me.
Well, we'll set it for 3.
Okay,
We'll set it for 3, and if she says, oh, I can't be there till 3:30 or 4,
Okay.
we'll change
change it.
If
Okay.
if that's okay.
sure, sounds good.
And even at 4, I know sometimes she's been able to get here as early as 4. That
Right,
still gives you an hour and a half to kind of go over
Right,
everything.
right. If nothing else, we'll get a good quick kickoff off of it.
Yeah.
right, right. Okay,
And Mandy, I know it'd be a lot of work, but would you be able to assemble a folder of what all the documents are and send it to us in a folder so we could, instead of getting an email here and an email there, just have
I
one.
did
Right.
recently do
Yeah,
that. I
right,
sent
right.
y'all a link.
Yeah.
Exactly.
you gave us a link. I just gotta go find it in my
Okay.
computer, but there is a
Always
link.
resend it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we could all have
Yeah.
all the information, then we can have our own interpretation.
Correct.
Right,
You got it.
okay. Good. Good with that one? All right. Recall the letter for support of the state funding to acquire 9 Island Cove property. I know, Mandy, you sent something out the other day that we have requested that information that was originally sent and had not received a reply from that individual in Tallahassee. Have you heard anything since then?
No, sir.
Okay. I don't know other than calling them, keep harassing them, how we're gonna ever get that information back.
Well, from the records request that was made, from the documents that were retrieved in response to a recent records request by a council member, it appeared to be pretty clear, because I think the question was, what exactly was sent to the state?
Mm-hmm.
And I think going through that, it was pretty clear that as part of the application, the management prospectus was a document that fulfilled one of the requirements of the application. And the letter, although I can't tell you this is exactly what was put in the mail or this is exactly what was delivered, when you look at everything, it's pretty, to me, it's very evident what
Fine.
went to the state, to the ARC meeting on June 11th.
I agree.
But I did make that request to say, can you provide me with exactly what was submitted? And I have not gotten a response yet, but I think it's safe to say it was the letter, the prospectus, and the application.
I think we all got that.
Mhm. Where I'm confused still a little bit is, did the city send out and request that to be part of the application, or was it the RRC? Or who exactly sent all this stuff to the state?
I believe that it was taken, there was a meeting on June 11th of 2021. And I believe we had representation there. I believe it was Bill White and Bert Eno that made the presentation to the committee. Whether those documents were mailed in advance or whether they were presented at that meeting, I can't be sure.
Okay, gotcha. I want to, Mandy, that the prospectus, I highlighted it up and sent you. Can you pull that up on the screen, please?
That's where it lays out what the city's responsible for, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Right.
that's when I went crazy.
There you go. We just throw out the first highlight. Thank you. What I want to do is just give everybody a visual and not just a verbal of what is in this letter and what it commits the taxpayers to. The first highlight says the city of Dunnellon will develop trails, benches, a river boardwalk, a picnic pavilion, and a parking area to allow access to park. The property is in the Dunnellon CRA area, and funding for grant matches or projects can be available from this source of revenue. So it's very evident that they're going to be, somebody wants to tap in. This letter taps into our CRA funds to do all these things. That's item letter 2 in the letter. I'm going to go down to item 3. An estimate of the revenue generating potential of the property if appropriate. Here's the answer to that. The revenue generating potential is limited. To help with maintenance costs, the city of Dunnellon may choose to have a parking fee, a franchise for a food truck, or a fee for pavilion rental for larger groups. So there is, looking at the petition that was signed by the people that live in that area, they are so against this. This is just one of the reasons. Now, the timetable, okay, we've been heard verbally from people coming up here telling us there is no timetable to do any of this. Number 4, a timetable for implementing the various stages of management and for providing access to the public if applicable. Here's the answer. The timetable for implementing the intended uses of this property would begin as soon as it's acquired. The first phase will be to extend sidewalks, modify entrance into the park, to develop woodland trails next to the coves, other improvements, including a boardwalk, pavilion, benches, and historic kiosk will evolve over a 5-year period as funds are available. This actually reads a whole lot like Blue Run Park, actually. So we're going to drop down to number 6, provisions for protecting existing infrastructure and for ensuring the security project upon acquisition. Dunnellon Public Services staff, which is our public works, Chad's group, will do routine maintenance on the park and hire contractors for the occasional need for larger projects. So far, the only thing I'm reading into this is money, 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 money. The anticipated number 7, anticipated costs of management and projected sources of revenue, including legislative appropriations to fund management needs. Operation, that's the answer, operation and maintenance costs for community activities and passive recreation will be provided by the city of Dunnellon CRA funds and general revenue. Those are your tax dollars. Number 8, recommendations as to how many employees will be needed to manage the property and recommendations as to whether local governments, volunteer groups, the former landowner, or other interested parties can be involved in the management of this property. Here's the answer. The city of Dunnellon will assume responsibility for managing the park, utilizing existing staff, period. City personnel will maintain the park features and facilities of the public, and the Public Services Department will monitor and conduct natural resource activities. We have just been committed to buku bucks. If this thing goes for $1 million, well, then we're looking at 10% match. City's got to cough up 100,000 right away. With everything I'm reading in here, I can go bang, bang. I can get up to another 100 grand immediately. Ongoing cost to do all of this, I know Works does every single day. We don't have the resources to go do any of this. We would be hiring more people, more equipment. And we simply don't have the funding to do this without raising taxes. Just give me a minute, please. Okay, now here's where it's going to get ugly. Also, for me, this just stinks to the high heavens. It has scandal written all over it. Just look at some of the people pushing this the hardest and where they own property and how recently they bought the property. Some even bought property when this letter was sent to the state. In my opinion, they're speculating that the government is going to buy them out and make them a profit off of their investments. Others making the most noise do not pay Dunnellon taxes, but simply want Dunnellon taxpayers to fund their pet project. This is some of the very reasons why I'm here on this council and agreed to do this job. And that's to stop the taxpayers from becoming victims of these predators that want to fill up our tax dollars for their own special interests. And when the people when the people that want this start resorting to the worn out rhetoric of it's for the children, it's for this, it's for that, they go to that rhetoric because the facts are not in their favor. The finances are definitely not in their favor. And when they resort to that type of rhetoric, that is really the time for caution, and take the time to separate the facts and the baloney. And I am asking for nothing less than that letter and application be rescinded.
I think you're clear.
Thank you.
Rex, you have anything to say?
No, I think Tim
You're
said it
good.
all.
I think Tim did too. I'm a little surprised that the state has kind of ignored our comments, or requests for this information. Mandy, if you would get me that lady's name or whoever we're asking for this, I'll try to call her and maybe rattle her cage and see. But I'm like you. I think if nothing else, we need to write a letter to that lady saying we're rescinding this whole application to be included, based on the facts as we understand them. And in the meantime, I will try to reach out to her and get her to at least respond to us. We probably won't get an answer, but I'll try again. And I don't disagree with everything you said. I totally agree. I think I look at this as being, and I hate to say it this way, another Blue Run Park, where the city was told over and over and over for years, this is never going to cost the city anything. It's never going to cost the taxpayers anything. And as we've learned sitting here on this council, it does. It costs us a certain amount every year. And this is just another park that's going to cost us a lot on the other end of town. But in addition to that, I don't know how the funding of the trails on Blue Run Park were done, but it's clear the city of Dunnellon is going to fund any trails and roads and sidewalks and everything based on that letter.
Correct.
We're going to fund this.
Correct.
So I totally disagree with this whole thing. I am also aware there's a movement in this town,
Thank you.
and I understand it involves a couple of people that used to sit on this board who are pushing so hard on this. They're going to ask for a referendum of the voters of the people of Dunnellon to vote to do this. And I have talked to a number of residents over in River Drive about that, and they said whatever they do, we can match because we don't want it. But be prepared to start seeing things and people soliciting for registered voters to sign a petition to have it put on the election when it comes up, because that information has started floating around. Okay. All right. think
No,
that
I
puts
just,
an end to that.
I just wanted to add that I think you brought it up last meeting that I think Jim Gissy, the guy who donated all the land over there,
Right.
he did it all himself.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
He went to the state, he got it with the land and we weren't involved.
Nothing at all. We don't
And
need,
that-
exactly.
The same thing can be done here if they're that serious about it.
Right, right. We don't need to be involved in this at all.
Without us being
Exactly.
obligated to.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
exactly. Yeah, and if those property owners want to do it, I'm all for it. Because it doesn't involve the city funding anything.
Correct.
But what this letter has signed, binds us to quite a bit, and I think we need to withdraw it.
Okay, so you want us to prepare something for you to
Yeah.
review and
I think if you could prepare something and have it for the next meeting and,
for
you
the
know,
11th?
Yes,
the
ma'am.
11th, and let's all review the letter before the meeting. And if we're comfortable with it, we just want, basically say we want to withdraw this application be included. Okay. Okay. Let's get on to something I know these three little ladies out here are very interested in. Discussion about the dog rescue zoning. I don't know if y'all were here last week
Yeah, they
when this was discussed. I think you were.
Yeah, they were.
Okay, so we want to continue that discussion. Why don't you take off?
Well, I thought where we left off is, so we need to get this on a workshop.
Yep.
Is to fix our ordinance that and take out the language that has the exceptions in it. So that only a specified number of dogs are allowed in these residential areas.
I totally agree.
And then as Andrew stated, once the dogs start getting
Rescued or adopted out.
adopted out, why then better get those numbers down, and that should take care of the issue, and for future issues of where this ordinance let's get
I
us into this
totally
predicament.
agree with that solution, Andrew, that makes the most sense. And if anything, I think if I remember in that discussion, we also talked about possibly if people want to apply for dog rescue, that it should be in what zone B?
B zones, correct.
B zones, or possibly A1, which is agriculture, might make some
Mhm.
sense. But clearly residential, I don't believe this is in what was ever intended, and it's just happened. And it's just gonna take time to adopt these dogs out and get it down to 4, and then that's the end of that.
So Mandy, is this something that you would work with Andrew on to redo the language in the existing ordinance, and then can give us a letter to look at, and or whatever, give us a modified ordinance to look at, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, Andrew could prepare an ordinance to mirror whatever it is you want in the ordinance.
Right. I think Andrew, we kind of discussed this last week, and I know you and I've discussed it. I think clearly A1, A2, and A3, these kind of, where there's this exception in Marion County, which is what currently we're following for tax exempt rescues or exempt from that. I think that needs to be removed, and in these zones, the maximum is 4, and where there's an existing one, we tailor it so, okay, you got it, and you start working it down.
Well, we can get where you all want to be. What I would recommend is not modifying Marion County's ordinance, because we've adopted it verbatim,
Right.
but simply adding on to, and what I'm hearing
Okay.
here, the direction actually is going to a zoning ordinance. We had discussed some different options before. And so you're talking about an animal restriction and a zoning ordinance on top of that. This doesn't need to be complicated, but there are some decisions to make.
Okay.
And what I would tell you is basically what you can do is just simply have a 4 animal or another animal restriction as a limit, and if somebody has a rescue in a residential area, fine, they're bound by that 4 restriction, just like anybody else. But through the zoning code, you can certainly allow an animal rescue for over 4, and we can go that route too. So via 2 separate ordinances or 1 ordinance all together, it might be different parts of the code, but we can accomplish that.
Okay.
Just in preparing for just to give you something to think about for feedback, I looked at, by chance, I was looking at another issue for the city and came along a Volusia County regulation, and they regulate it by lot size, because one of the options I had provided before was, well, maybe this doesn't apply in agricultural areas, limitations and so forth. People have 5 acres of property.
Right.
And so another way of looking at it is actually looking at lot size. And so in Volusia County, if it's a lot of 1 acre or less, the restriction is 5 for animals over 6 months, I believe. For lots greater than 1 acre, but less than 5, they have an 8 animal restriction. And then for any lots 5 acres or greater in size, 12. That's dogs and cats only. So that's, another way of taking a look at it. So from what I'm hearing right now, if I were going to go ahead and draft the ordinances, I would have a limitation we'd have to come up with an animal rescue organization definition, put it in the zoning code, saying it's these organizations with more than X number of animals. If we want to stick with 4, fine. And then limit it to certain, to the business areas, and then in addition, implement that 4 restriction. But, this is another way to go too. And what I would suggest is just keeping it simple. Obviously, any kind of zoning regulations would need to go for planning, but certainly I can draft it and have you all take a look at it first. So we don't have a situation, unless you all want planning to play a role in the drafting. Typically, they just do a review for comp plan consistency, and I'm not aware of anything in the comp plan that regulates animal numbers. They can simply review it for comp plan consistency after you've looked at what you want to do, or we could take it to planning commission to have drafting input. Really, there's just a number of choices to make and how you want to proceed with it.
Sure. Personally, I think in a town is our size, 7 square miles. I don't think you should have more than 4 animals. I just don't. What flashes in my mind when you start reading 1 acre to 5 acres,
Yeah.
whatever, I'm sitting here going, could somebody go into a subdivision and buy 4 or 5 lots, and the next thing you know, you got the same problem?
Yeah.
I would rather just say if it's zoned residential, you can't have more than 4. And then that just solves the problem.
Right, when you were saying agricultural, weren't you just referring to agricultural land when you were saying there were different numbers based on property size?
Well, in Volusia County, anywhere that has a residential designation, it's still based on size. So they have their
Oh,
number limit, and it
Right.
applies in ag as well. But then there's that dual regulation that also looks at, hey, you got these zoning codes. So these zoning codes, you have an animal limitation, and that includes anything where there's a residence. They're not talking about businesses here. They're
Mhm.
talking solely about residences. So that includes ag, but then they go through and they're looking at the actual lot size and then tagging it there too. Don't have to do it that way. Simply can establish residential, anything that's R within Dunnellon, and either that 4 can apply in agricultural areas or it cannot apply.
Right. I would rather just do it that
Same
way.
way.
I think what I'm concerned is we think we would solve it by saying 1 acre, 5 acres, whatever. And the next thing you know, 2 or 3 years down the road, we got another problem.
Right.
I would just say if it's residential, you can't.
Make it simple and clean, correct?
And then, and whether we say something about agriculture, the other thing that scared me when I got to getting into this and got with Kelly, she advised me that currently this city does not have an ordinance other than chickens.
Right.
You could have a cow in your yard. You could have a goat in your yard. There's no restriction. And I think that needs to be addressed as well. Or a horse. I mean, these are things that I don't even think about, but like she was going through it, she said, we made this modification to it a few years ago with chicken coops and stuff like that. And I understand that. But I think there ought to be, as part of this, not just dogs, that, farm animals such as horses, goats, mules, whatever, they're not allowed in R either. I mean,
I could have sworn that I seen something about livestock and all that, and in one of
I'm
our
sure
codes
there's something
somewhere.
in Marion County's code.
well, I would think there would be,
Right.
but listening to Kelly the
Yeah.
other day, she went through it and she said, I just don't see it.
Yeah, I seen something in there. Chickens were just kind of taken out of that,
Mhm.
and like an exception to the livestock rule for
Right.
people that want to have laying hens and
Okay.
stuff. But
Well-
I could have sworn I seen something in there that totally took care of livestock in residential areas.
Right. Are you okay with 4?
Well, technically, no, because I've got 10 at home.
Well, well, you can have them now. You just can't replace them.
That's my wife, yeah.
Okay.
Kelly and I were talking this afternoon too, and, about the grandfathering and how that would work. And I know you all had talked about, as the rescue adopted a dog out, they couldn't take any more in, but I'm not real sure how you're gonna monitor that. How you're gonna control that.
Mhm.
It is one of those situations where I'll be very frank about, with a lot of these regulations, enforcement does become somewhat of an issue. But
Right.
I think the whole standpoint of the ordinance is not so much, the real problem is not the number of animals when it's impacting neighbors. It's noise and what's associated with animals. So if
Right.
there is somebody who's violating the ordinance
Right.
and openly violating the ordinance and there's an issue, the city's going to be knowing about it, just like most codes are all driven complaint wise. And so if an officer goes out there and code enforcement officer and they can distinctly hear more than 4 dogs barking or observe them, it'll be clear that there's a violation, clear an issue. Homesteaded property, you won't be able to get an administrative search warrant for.
Mhm.
That's true. So, enforcement is always with an issue, but if there's a problem, problems tend to, pop up and call attention to themselves, in my
Right.
experience.
Right.
I'd venture to say that not all dogs are tagged or licensed in the state of Florida, in the city. Our animal licenses, we make nothing.
Right.
My issue is she has 20 dogs. I don't know them 20 dogs. I've seen 20 dogs.
Say that again.
If she has 20 dogs and she can adopt them out, how do I know them 20 dogs are the same 20 dogs? I mean, if she gets rid of 2 and brings 2 more in, if I'm not out there
That's what
every
I'm
hour,
saying.
you know exactly what color they are, what spots.
Well,
they have. And she says, oh, nope, the same ones I had before. How will I ever?
Right.
tell
It's gonna be hard to
20 dogs,
enforce.
20
dogs.
It would be
Could you
hard
put a
to,
time frame on it to say within a certain number of years, if it's non-conforming and not allowed, you have a time frame to be in compliance?
Well, you can, but the more regulations you get along those lines, then the
Right.
more it becomes, an issue and there could be an issue without going into depth, right up front. But yeah, with like I said, enforcement always being, an issue, everything of course is very fact specific. And, as the problem arises, usually there are facts that, provide for prosecution.
I think we can go the route that we're talking and we'll see what pops up and then deal with whatever pops up.
okay, I'm good with that.
Um,
Yeah. I think, Andrew, if you could just start with that and let's restrict it to 4 in the residential zones and make it simple and see what pops up.
Okay. So we want to go with few parameters, change the zoning code to provide for an animal rescue organization, something different. So you don't have to have a special exception, just straight zoning, tie
Right.
that to businesses
Mhm.
and 4 more restrictions. And then also look at farm animals. So we call farm animals what's defined within the Marion County Code and look at a restriction based on that.
Well, if y'all think it's already there, then I don't think we need it, but if it's not there, I
Right.
think we definitely need it.
Rather than spending attorney dollars, I'd rather
Okay. All right, let us look at the livestock thing.
yank
That's
Chad's
just something
chain.
I got to worrying about. My gosh, I
We
could
can-
put a horse in my front yard, it would be great.
Send everybody a copy of
Okay,
this here and I can highlight some of the definitions.
okay, let's do that. All right.
I just have one question. When you came in here, you also said that there were trouble with the fences and that the animals could get loose. Is that right?
They can all eventually because of the chain link. And so.
Are the animals secured? I got the idea from when you came in the first time that there was a risk of the animals not being secured. She's
got gates. The first thing with the fencing is she had it 6 foot in the front.
Oh, okay.
And she pushed it down and she pushed 2 feet of it down. She just flipped it over into the yard. So she's in compliance with the front. The whole thing is fenced with chain link. But there is large dogs and dogs do climb chain link fences,
Right.
they can. So
Oh, okay.
that's the fear. That they could escape. It's not like a ball wire on top or any kind of electricity going on or anything like that.
Oh.
But climbing or potentially digging out.
Talking with Chad as late as last week, all the fencing stuff and everything that was questionable or even a code, I'll call it a violation,
It's been fixed.
has all been resolved, correct?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure because
Okay.
Right,
that's something for right now that she brought up that we address.
right, I understand that, right,
Those are all good, but big dogs.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Dogs, yeah, some dogs are absolutely escape artists and that's part of the risk.
By the code is good, but a dog find.
Right.
Anything.
I just want to ask you, you've listened to us talk. Do you feel we've done something for you?
I do. I'm happy with it going forward the way it is because, you know, I mean, it's gonna take her a little bit to get rid of these dogs. And I appreciate you guys doing this because of this kind of slippery with the
Right.
cracks and all. She didn't do anything to try to do it the correct way. She should have at least gone for a special use permit or something.
Yeah.
She didn't.
Right.
Just started her nonprofit. She started with dogs and all of a sudden it just like went crazy. I found out and she's up to 20 of them. And, you know, with that being said, they're all very well documented on her Facebook page and everything, so it would be very easy for instance, Chad to document all 20 of these dogs and go back and make sure that, you know, she has everything, so it'd be easier to monitor.
Oh, okay.
She's getting actually down to conforming use.
Exactly.
Okay.
Not
Good,
just
good.
dogs. You know, but I mean, she probably never be conforming because she has 6 sanctuary dogs. So that basically it'll shut down her rescue, because she can't rescue anymore, she's not gonna get below the 4.
Right.
So
Well,
that's kind of where she started, she was those 6 dogs, and then it started, it just kind of grew up. So.
well, hopefully, and I understand. I mean, I love dogs. I've had dogs my whole life. Usually got 2 or 3, but 20, that's a lot. That's a little much. Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you all.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Okay, item number 7, discussion of fencing at Pennsylvania Avenue Bridge. I know this has been kicked around for quite a while. We can, we can't, we might be able to, we gotta have a gate. Where are we, Chad?
Me and Tim went out and looked at it and stuff, we walked around and I just don't know the cost.
Microphone chat.
It's okay. So me and Tim looked at it and everything, and I just don't know if we can, the cost will justify what we're trying to do, because I don't think it's gonna solve the problem. I don't know if there's a better solution, because we'd have to, like, when me and Tim looked at, you'd have to almost box the whole thing in completely, because you put a fence on one side, it just come from the other. We have, you know, Swampis that come across, they come across there, they come across from the other side. I don't think it's gonna solve anything more than the signs we put up and fencing, no trespassing, no entrance and stuff like that, and they're enforced. But fence wise, I mean.
No. Right. You know, don't see fencing as being real practical. When we did walk it down though, you know, immediately on the bridge, it says no jumping off a bridge. And there is a no trespassing sign, but that's kind of back in the DRA, or whatever that is back in there. And what looks like then when the police see people down there anyways, they get the, oh, I didn't see the sign. So it's like, okay. So what might be something to do is we can take a sign with all the proper verbiage on it, whatever the language has to say, if it needs an ordinance number, if it needs that, it needs this, so the police have teeth to enforce it. Stab the sign right in the middle of the pathway that goes down there, and then take a couple cables, like some 1/4-inch cables or something from the signpost, run it over. They don't have to be hard secured to the bridge, but we can just tether them to the bridge with a couple cable clamps. And that way somebody is going to have to go between the 2 cables. There's no way they're going to be able to tell the police, I didn't see the sign. Because they're going to have to go through some effort to get through that. We know on the south side is not a problem. We can, looks like we can do that. Now, there's another area on the south side that's kind of back further towards the Kruger's house, the property, where there's a well-worn trail where it looks like people are walking down, pulling kayaks and stuff down through that way. And there is a sign right there that says no trespassing, etc. But they're actually using the signpost to hang on so that they can get down the thing. Now, on each side of this pathway, though, there are very grown up bushes and stuff that's going to take a lot to do to trim those down and create another path. I think we can just take the sign that's sitting there, stab it right in the middle of that particular path, and people are going to have to go through all the bushes and all that at that point if they want to go through. And there's no way that they're going to be able to say, I didn't see the sign. So they're either going to be like rabbits and make little burrows through there or that type thing. On the north side of the bridge, we just got to see whose property is what. And then we could do the same thing with a sign and the cable trick on the north side of the bridge. And I don't know what else that we could do. Is that going to stop it? You know, I think maybe the best we can do is slow it down, but we can also give the police teeth to enforce it and get rid of the I didn't see it stuff and all that. I mean, I'll use this rope swing. You know, we've cut the branches off, we've cut everything off. There's another rope up there right now that's up higher than what the other one is. I was going fishing the other day and went up there as soon as I come around the corner. I see this backflip come out. It was a good one too. A backflip come out of the tree, hit the water, you know, and it's just like when we were youngins, you know, these little kids are just like we were, they're like little monkeys climbing up this thing. They don't need the boards. They don't need anything. Scrambled up that tree, got to the branch and backflipping right off of it. I mean, you know, we're not going to get rid of all of it, but we can at least try to slow it down. And what I worry about, I guess, most is at some point, kind of like swimming pools, if you haven't done enough to, so it's not an attractive nuisance, and we know this stuff's going on, especially when we're plucking dead bodies out of the river. You know, I think at least it shows that we are proactively taking steps to say, hey, you know, you can't go down there. You're going to get hurt. You guys are swimming out there between all the boat traffic, the congested area with the boat traffic coming through the bridge, the lack of visibility. You know, we all know it's only a matter of time for somebody gets chopped up out there. And so I think we do something like this. It should be low cost. I think it'd be as effective as anything else that we can do, or at least proactively doing something. To say, hey, we understand that we have a little bit of an attractive nuisance here, and
We're trying to stop it. right?
yeah, trying to stop it.
You have any thoughts? The only thing I'm listening to you, and it's frustrating, but no. In my younger days,
Absolutely.
I jumped off that bridge. So, I mean, I get it. I mean, that's what you do when you're young and
Right.
crazy. The only other thing I'm sitting here listening to you, and I know the answer to this, but I'll say it anyway. Certain plants are extremely unpleasant to be next to. My mother, when I acquired her home, had a tremendous amount of Spanish bayonet plants around her yard. The problem is they can be hacked up eventually. There are certain holly bushes that will cut you alive. I had one in my house in Birmingham, and I'd get out there once a year and try to trim it, and it would just eat you up. I don't know whether something like this would do if we planted it right now before next spring. They'd probably just pull it out of the ground, but that's the only other thought I had.
It has come up in conversation.
Yeah. Okay. I agree that there's not a whole lot we can do. Just
You know, but this
keep
seems,
working at it.
yeah, this seems pretty simple. So
Okay. I'm that. Let's
we'll
try
check,
to
see what we can do.
move some signs and get some very cable, and then they at least got to walk through it. You know, I keep watching what they're doing down at the southern border, and I like the razor wire and all that, but I think that might be a little bit too dangerous. Might be a little extreme. That might be a little too strong,
Really? You're still going through that though.
but whatever. Whatever. We won't go any further than that. Okay. Next item. Resolution RES 2023-23 surplus vehicles and equipment. Looks like we need to dispose of a few more things. I didn't see anything on here that bothered me. Did y'all?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I'm all for this. I think we need to get this done. And can we get that on the agenda to take care of that and sign it? And we'll have to vote on that, right?
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I have to go on the regular agenda.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. All right,
And it's just some furniture.
Right.
One truck.
in one truck. Right, yeah. I like the fact we are getting rid of this stuff, because eventually we'll get it down to stuff we really use, and that's what we need to do. Okay. City clerk evaluations.
I got everyone's evaluation.
Mm-hmm,
I put it all together.
mm-hmm,
I sent it out to all of you today.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to talk about it, if you want me to pull it up, review it.
I'm fine. I get, you know, I sit at home and we can't talk and we make our own opinions. I was amazed at how my opinion pretty much matched everybody else's. I mean, I just sat there and read it and looked at the numbers and went, dang gum, you know, we all think alike.
Gotcha. I've not read the others yet, so.
I
don't
I
get
read
super
the,
good.
she
I will.
put the comments down and then she put the average score on each one. And I just kept looking at mine and looking back and I thought, damn, it's amazing how four of us that are so different can really come up with pretty much the same thing. They were very much the same. I'm fine with not discussing it, but if y'all want to discuss it, we're good.
Fine with not discussing it.
Uh,
I'm fine with not discussing it because we've said what we said.
Right.
And I think the same goes for the both of you when we have to do yours. Since I've only seen yours, so.
We only do Mandy's and the Chiefs.
Oh.
Yeah, we just do too. Yeah, Mandy takes care of all the rest of it. Okay, but no, I was really, if anything, pleased that my thoughts and my feelings about your performance really mirrored what everyone else was saying and the ratings you got. And I thought, wow. And that's,
So we all agree. That's
Yeah.
D plus.
I mean,
You gave me a good score on number 13, which was.
Must have been in a good mood.
yeah, for 10 was the one I was really waiting for. Since he kind of kept everybody on edge this year. Okay, I'm good with whatever we need to do. I felt like once I read mine, I think we're all in agreement. And Julianne's not here, but obviously she had some comments and I read those too, and I'm good with it.
Do we need a consensus so that the raise money happens with 22-23 budget year, not and not get into the 23-24 budget? What do we got to do there, Mandy?
Yes, we're processing a payroll this week. This is the final payroll for this fiscal year.
Okay.
So you can approve it formally at your meeting next week, but in order to get it in on this last payroll for fiscal year, if you have a consensus to approve, we can get it in on this payroll and you can
I think we should do that.
approve it next Wednesday
Right,
formally. There's not a problem with that, is there, Andrew? As long as there's a consensus?
Is it, as long as it's consistent with the city's policy?
Okay.
We stumped it.
And the fact they're all,
We can do a
We don't-
consensus.
They have a policy that specifically says, you know, it just says the city council shall evaluate me every year. It doesn't get that deep.
It's pretty much a given that the salary increase occurs within that fiscal year you're being evaluated.
right.
Right.
It should have been in July, if I remember right.
Practice.
The next thing is to, exactly what Jan is saying, in attorney speak, we just looked at custom. So
Yeah.
if the custom has been typically, of course, we're falling very close to the end of the fiscal year. If you're typically reviewed in July, for instance, or that's what's happened in the past,
Mhm.
then it's applied going forward. I just follow the same pattern, you know, as that goes. It doesn't make it a decision item just because we're, you know, having the reviews at this period in time. So whatever's happened before would be the next thing to look at.
Okay.
So we can put this on the consent agenda?
You can,
I'm fine with it, but yeah, I would, reading the evaluations, I would say, yeah, we're on consensus agreement.
put it on consent.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. All right, number 11, city council vacancy. And I think the three of us knew there were two people that applied for this vacancy. Now Art has withdrawn. So now we just have one. And that is Adam Nickel. I assume that's who you are. Because, yeah, Nichols, because I look around the room, I know everybody else. I didn't know you. Would you like to come up and just tell us a little bit about your history? Realize you're from Dunnellon, and give us kind of a background of you real quick.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilman, everybody else. Adam Nichols, born and raised, like my bio said in the paper. I served in the military for 20 years. Visited home frequently during that time, watched it change from 2000 to today. Participated in different communities around the world, be it in Europe or Asia, up and down the East Coast. I-95, when I was stationed stateside, was always I-95. And I always thought to myself, if I ever get a chance to go home, settle down, I'd like to participate in town. I didn't think for a second that, as soon as I moved home, because I just moved home, August. I didn't think that something would come open that quick. My first thought was about the police chief, not that I'm a certified law enforcement officer, but if I served, my great grandfather served on the police force here in Dunnellon. So that was my first thought. I got some work I got to do before I could do that. And then this slot came open. I said, well, you know what? I'm gonna throw my hat in. I gotta admit, I was a little disappointed when there was only two people. So I mean, if selected, one of my biggest things would be to get the people of Dunnellon a little bit more involved in their community. But unless you have questions.
If you have any questions, you good?
I'll just put it out there. What I'm looking for is someone that has experience in business, budgets, practical experience with projects, contracts, experience with oversight duties and processes.
Well, I was a logistician in the military. So I've worked at hospitals at the level of a medical center as Walter Reed and the new Walter Reed, managing logistics, mainly equipment management. I've managed personnel. I am a business major at the University of Maryland, global campus. I've trained, hundreds, if not thousands of people in weapons marksmanship, which I'm not trying to arm the citizens or anything. But budget, I've been a contract coordinator. I've held a budget for logistics department several times. Not on the scale of the city, but I mean, on a scale of multi-millions of dollars coming in and out of, working at the President's Hospital, we had an unlimited budget, so when we closed it, that was the first time we ever inventoried, and I was part of the responsibility of making sure that all the equipment that stayed behind, I was appointed for it, which was millions of dollars that got left in place. So, I mean, public servant wise, no experience, but ins and outs of money, management, processes, regulations, as being in the service, I have been a part of many inspections to make sure compliance has been made across the board.
Because what this job really turns out to be is it's an enormous amount of research. It's mostly grunt work, figuring this out, figuring that out. A whole bunch of it is the folks that want to bring you projects and stuff, and you got to filter the facts from fiction, and a whole lot of that. As far as the feel good stuff, and maybe just because it's not in my personality, not that as far as the feel good stuff of gathering up the community and all that, what you see in this audience here is typical And I'm not dissing anybody. I'd never got involved. I worked 80, 100-hour weeks. Wasn't gonna do, didn't have time for any of this. Understand where the public's at. I'm not talking bad about any of it. But you know, the feel good stuff as far as gathering up, camaraderie and all that kind of stuff. That's a nice thing, but it's not a realistic thing, you know, looking for people that actually want to dig in and, like I said, do the grunt work and actually help. You know, we've had my observation is we've had councils in the past that just toss out one rock after another, and they send these people scattering 6 different directions, and then wondering why the projects are either messed up or don't happen at all. And at the end of the year, we don't look any different than we did at the beginning of the year, just a lot more backbiting and all that kind of stuff going on. So I just want you to understand it's really more just like going to work and doing stuff than a great big feel good process. And actually half the people are going to hate you and half the people are going to like you. And it will swap the very next week when you make a decision that the other half don't like. So
People aren't hating you, you're not doing nothing right.
yeah, that's the way I feel. If the right people are hating you while you're doing it right. So,
Right.
appreciate your time, appreciate your interest.
Yes, sir.
We'll take a look at you.
I agree with Tim. This hadn't turned out to be what I thought it was going to be. In some respects, it has. I think we all up here, after spending almost a year now, because we are all new to this council within the last year, have learned that, let's just say, this takes a lot more time than you think it does. And the more you read and the more you get involved with things, the more you realize you don't know, and the more you realize, wow, I'm not sure other councils read all the stuff I've just read, because we find things that just don't really add up. I know Tim has spent an enormous amount of time digging through all the budgets of all departments and everything else. And we all have spent on different subjects,
Right.
different amounts of time, Julian's into zoning and planning and all that. I spent a lot of time just kind of overseeing everything nobody else just want to do. And but it does. I mean, when you get this $150 a month, you realize you probably make about 10 cents an hour, be realistically. Now, some months I'm hoping in the future get a little better. The first 6 months, I wasn't making 10 cents an hour, because you really have to roll your sleeves up and go to work. And I hope that's what you're willing to do. And it sounds like if you're in the military, you've probably been doing what you've been told. The only thing that did bother me, what you said, was in the military that we had an unlimited budget. Well,
Right. Yeah.
In this particular, in the hospitals and all, and I totally get that. I'm not criticizing that at all. But the thing I think all of us sit here realizing is that this budget of this town, when you start looking at spending money, you're not spending your money, you're spending town's money and the
Well, now, Mayor,
taxpayers.
I said in the president.
No, I get it. No.
I worked 10 more hospitals, so I understand.
No, I mean, that's the thing I think we have all taken very seriously, is that every time we're approving, whether it's by Chad a new dump truck or whatever, or the police some equipment they need, we look at, is it needed, and how much does it cost, and does it make sense for the city? And clearly in certain areas, we find the money. I mean, we just got to. And then other things, if you go back through this last year, you'll see where things have been started that we just shut down. We said this was a waste of city money, waste of taxpayer money, and we're not doing it. And we all kind of think that way up here, that, and it's different for me in that I have to always remember, this isn't my money, this is your money. And if I'm gonna spend it, I want to make sure we're getting the best buck we can in how we do it. So I appreciate you volunteering for this. I appreciate you coming back to this town. I grew up in Ocala, was raised in Dunnellon, and I came home too. I was gone 40 years, but I get it. Are you related to the Nichols that owned
The lumber
lumber company? Okay, that was the first thing that hit me. When I first moved back, they had Nichols Lumber, and when I saw your name, I thought, man, it looks like it's spelled the same way. Okay,
Our Nichols started out in Otter Creek.
okay,
And then my mom was a Peterson, so.
okay, I got it. I get it. It's funny, like me, I was at the gym the other day and I didn't realize I'm the only Dunn I know. And I was talking to them, they have 15 people named Dunn that go to that gym. And I'm like, wow.
Where's Julianne when we need her?
But anyway, appreciate your interest and, thanks for stepping up.
Yes, sir, definitely. I
Okay.
appreciate your insight.
Absolutely.
And I do hope I get a chance and the opportunity to serve
Okay,
and learn and continue to grow, what y'all have started or y'all inherited. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Going to say that the applications are closed and.
Yes, I mean, I wish we had another one, not any offense against him.
Well, the
I
only
would-
reason I'm asking is if he has to be approved next meeting, can we see if that's one of the first items on the agenda?
Oh,
so we
yeah.
can Get it done so that we can have the full board.
Sure, absolutely.
So our next meeting will be next Wednesday night. Yeah.
The only thing, I assume Julianne's gotten all this information too.
Yes.
Now, she doesn't know Art's withdrawn, but, yeah, I agree. We ought to have a vote on this first thing. So assuming he gets approved, that we have a full board.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Number 12. Mr. Bray. Purchase approval of the police department IT security hardware.
Be the final project in order to accomplish everything that we set out to lessen our IT infrastructure.
You say it one more time, Ron.
What's that?
This will be the last.
Time this year.
Okay.
It's 2024. That's, it should complete the project. That's our goal.
Okay.
As you know, when we came in, we were faced with some challenges.
Mhm.
And so we've addressed those and a lot of opportunities for improvement. And we feel like we've addressed everything. The best thing is obviously getting Vertex on board because we have a true expert there that's partnered with us. So
Mhm.
do you have any specific questions?
Ron, can you give them just a little bit of idea? Because they weren't given any backup or anything in advance of the meeting. We have these folders that we can share with them, but we need to take them back because it's confidential information. But I mean, as much as you can say without,
No, just to butt in, we all had conversations with Ron.
okay, so you all have.
Right,
Yeah, we
right.
all-
So
we all
he
met
has,
with Ron and Chief.
I am good.
Okay,
No,
No,
I
I'm
mean,
good. I'm good. I sat down with him and went through it.
Was it the actual?
you know, Michelle, since it's in writing, sure.
Oh,
and it's a purchase for your IT security.
Correct.
Right. And as I told them, I'm very familiar with Vertex. My companies that I've worked with have used them for years. Top quality company, absolutely will break their backs to be helpful, is what I remember. And I'm not an IT guy. Okay, I just ran computers with whatever came out the other end. But no, I think this is a great company, and clearly, I think we all made the right steps to get the police department up to where it needs to be. So,
Vertex, their depth of expertise in IT for law enforcement and CJIS compliance, that's where it's been tremendous help for us.
mhm.
And that's, their depth of experience in revamping so that we can look at this and get everything right the first time.
Right.
That's our goal.
Mhm.
And my understanding is, we, really not gonna be worded right, but we really don't have a choice. I mean, if we want to operate our police station, we have to get this
Correct.
right. So basically what I read in this, skin through real quick, this basically just itemizes everything you told us on the phone
Correct.
call, gets us to the $63,000.
The $63,000.
Gotcha. And then my next question will be to Jan.
Well, I understand there's a dunking booth in the 14th. That if we can solicit enough.
And I will be in Georgia that day.
We have a couple more meetings.
Thank you for
Right.
volunteering.
What, Ronnie? You betcha. It's my understanding, and I haven't seen any paperwork on this, that part of this falls under operations, the other part falls under capital. Capital is not an issue because of 1 cent sales tax.
Mhm.
Operations, since it's not in the budget, we're gonna need to amend the budget anyway for
Mhm.
this large purchase.
Right.
As well as the operations, whether we actually absolutely need it at year end, because we've got 12 months to go. Don't know, we'll have to see how the budget plays out, but I don't want to let this wait.
Right.
I would rather go ahead and amend the budget, just get it on record
Right.
that it's being funded. So I'll bring that to you in the near future.
Awesome.
Once I see the paperwork and maybe get with Lieutenant as far as what can I say in the
Sure,
budget amendment
sure.
as far as what the purchase is. And it may just
Right.
have to be generically IT security hardware for the police department
Right.
and a dollar amount.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
The only question I got is how soon can they get this going for y'all?
They're gonna start on it. If you guys reach this on the 11th, and they're gonna start on it that next day.
Good. I thought that's what you'd said. They're
Yeah,
gonna do it
they're standing
immediately.
by waiting.
Right,
Is
okay.
This something we can do a consent agenda on?
Absolutely. Put it on the consent agenda. I think we all, like I say, I listened very carefully to what you had to say and, I'm all in. Hope everybody is. Okay.
And we appreciate that. You guys taking the extra time out of your day to come
No,
by. and
no
my
problem.
gosh. Thank you,
listen to
Ron.
us. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem, guys.
Can we put smelling salts in the, next time we got to deal with Ron?
Is that the budget or should I put it in the budget?
We can add that as a line item. Okay. Down to number 13, department head reports. Mandy?
I don't have anything further to report, sir. Just a
Good.
reminder that I will be away the 12th through the 20th. And y'all can harass her while I'm.
Okay.
That's really, I don't have anything.
Okay, Chad?
I don't really have anything. Just working on a project for the police department. We're still waiting on pricing to come back, in generator system and changing over to propane. And, trying to get their parking lot resurfaced and covered as a one project. So just waiting on.
Their parking lot?
Theirs.
Good.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's in bad shape.
Well, we're gonna put, if we do with propane lines. And after trenching through and patching the parking lot and what's right there, just makes more sense to resurface all the way across. So just waiting on pricing to come back on that.
Okay.
And that may need to be another budget amendment because
Okay.
I'm gonna check with the auditors. Once Chad gives me all the
Information.
information on exactly what he's doing, if
Mhm.
it can be fall under capital. Cause I'm not so sure it can, otherwise it'll be operations, but it'll be a small amount just coming in from unrestricted.
Gotcha.
And
Sure.
again, these are only if needed.
Sure.
If not, the money stays right where it is.
Got it. Okay. Okay, chief. Department head. Oh, Ron's gonna do it. Okay, Ron, sorry. Little delegation there.
Yeah, exactly. For the police department, we have, at this point, we have one vacancy, but we obviously have full control of patrol on the road. For the month of September, we closed it out. One of the big things we continue to monitor is that of traffic. And continue with numerous traffic citations. Over the course of the month, we did affect 13 arrests. And a very significant portion of that were discovered during the traffic stops. So we continue doing that, and we continue with several investigations that are continuing on. So we have the project that Chad's working on for our patrol room. We've changed everything around, did a little bit of decorating and cleaning up and getting some dust and dirt out of the way to make it a little bit more presentable and professional for the officers to work in. But we're proud that currently no officers are currently in field training. They've all graduated and out to their work assignments. So
Great, good.
we're looking forward to getting that last officer hired and to be full staff until next year.
And you have the police opening at 10 o'clock on Thursday, the 12th.
That is correct.
Good, I got it on my calendar. I just want to make sure.
And do not forget the dunking booth on the 14th.
Okay, I'm not gonna forget that as I'm driving to
Yeah.
Georgia.
With bells on my toes and bells on my feet.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. Any other department heads?
I have one thing to report that I forgot about.
I knew you couldn't get by without anything.
This Friday, Andy, IT, will be working with Granicus to get our encoder installed, which is what makes it possible for us to live stream and caption the meetings. We have a meeting with our website project manager Thursday, and we will set a go live date then, but the goal is that it happens before the end of the month, because when we publish the November 6th workshop agenda, I want to be over in the new agenda meeting management system, so that when we put that October 30th publication out, it's with the system.
Great.
So I have been sending out some emails and staying after some people and trying to fast track this thing, because we're already behind schedule, but the goal is to have everything done so that when we publish the agenda in October, it will be through the new peak agenda system. And when we have our meeting on November 6th, it will be live streamed through the website, no more Zoom. Everything will be just like we want it to be.
Awesome.
All right,
Cool. Thank you.
good deal. That's great. Get these systems up. Okay. Any other department heads? Isn't that it? You don't have anything? Oh, that's right. Well, you had plenty of things last month. You can calm down this month. I was gonna say, this month you should be okay. No, I'm aware of some things we're doing that are gonna amend that budget, and we just have to deal with it. I'm like you, though. If this is gonna go into the 23-24, let's just wait and see how it goes. I mean, it's what I'd rather do.
Rather than me prepare an amendment right now.
Oh, no.
You wanna go ahead and do it?
I think
For the IT,
Okay,
because it's capital and I'm gonna be using sales tax money.
okay,
And that's gonna have to come from reserve, because the sales tax money is new money for the most part is all used. I think all but a small piece of it.
I mean, I'm certainly not an amendment fan, but we knew that we were gonna have growing pains and,
no, I knew we were getting it in there. Okay,
right.
And then
Okay.
as far as the parking lot, Chad and I it could either come from, if it's capital, from the sales tax money or gas tax money.
right,
But it's only because that's coming from reserve. The operations piece of these IT.
right.
That could wait if you want.
Okay,
They
gotcha. I
can
see where
see
you're
it.
at. Well,
Okay.
gotcha.
All
Can
right.
absorb that.
Yeah, I agree.
Agree.
Okay,
Cool.
all right.
Yes.
We got it. We got agreement. Good. deal.
Council, May I have something?
Oh,
Second
no.
in command.
Are
I
you
mean, I
department
know-
head?
I'm not,
Okay, but go ahead.
but if I may. So we have completed our Ernie Mills Park project with the Duke grant money that we have in some of the 125 park funds. So we would like to have a ribbon cutting.
Mm-hmm.
We would like to invite, obviously, all of council and Duke, the representatives from Duke, all of our volunteers. And actually, the chamber has said that they would do have the ribbon with the big scissors and all of that good stuff. So we would like you to give us a date that you would like to do that. Because we just installed the trees and there's a few other events and stuff, and Chad's gonna try to get a couple additional park benches out there before. We were hoping that you could pick something towards the end of the month. Maybe even like a Halloween thing. Chad was saying, you know, we could do like some hay bales and pumpkins and stuff out there, and maybe they could do it. I don't know if the chamber is doing anything for Halloween. They used to do a trail of treats. I don't know if anybody remembers that,
I've not heard anything in their meetings about
them doing
about
anything.
doing, right.
So maybe we could do something. Halloween is on a Tuesday night, so if we did it at like 5 o'clock, then there's no overtime for staff. I know you'd like that, Tim. You know, maybe like a 5 o'clock ribbon cutting on a Tuesday night, or, you know, if we did it on Halloween, we could make it look real harvesty down there. But it's up to you. But we would like to do a ribbon cutting, and we do need some leeway because we would like to invite Duke and to
Sure.
show them we've done everything. They do have a couple more things they have to do out there too, though.
My calendar's pretty much wide open, other than meetings that we have here. So whatever date anybody picks, I'll make happen.
Check something.
I'll get with Chad on the whole hay bale thing and see how far we've already waxed Santa Claus. Now we're gonna bring in
Well, we don't have to do anything as far as like celebrating the
You're swapping
event.
holiday, right?
right. Get the folks up too high.
Putting deposits down or anything.
No, I get it.
I just checked, daylight savings time doesn't end until November 5th. That'll be
Correct.
the next week.
Actually won't be here.
I mean, we could pick another day. It was just,
The week before, I'm wide open. The week of the 23rd through the 27th.
well, y'all are welcome to have it. I won't be here.
Does that
I'll
work?
still coordinate everything, but I won't be here. I'm at my FACC conference that week.
Well, then why don't we make it on the Thursday, if that's okay, because Friday staff is usually off, and then they don't have to come in for an extra day. We can do it on a day when staff is here.
How about let's put a plan together, what we're gonna do, everything and all that, and then present the plan. And then we can choose a date,
At the meeting?
At the next meeting,
right?
yeah.
I mean, we have a we did a sign thanking Duke,
Mhm.
and then they had to do all the plant signs. It really doesn't have to be anything grand, just something that's thanking Duke for the
Mm.
grant.
No, I'm with you.
funds,
I agree.
Showing them the signs for
Right.
the plants,
Right.
allowing people to walk through the park and see
Mm-hmm.
all the improvements that we've done.
You know, I
That's
don't,
it.
yeah, myself, I don't see the turnout being grand,
It doesn't, no, I don't
you know,
either.
so I don't know how much trouble we want to go through hauling hay bales and all that kind of stuff. Not to burst your
Somebody
bubble,
made
I'm,
that suggestion.
okay.
Well, let's get it all figured out, and like you say, at the next regular meeting, the 11th, let's,
I mean, my
Let's pick
thoughts
a
are
date.
just to unveil the sign.
Sure.
Thanking
Right.
Duke and the
Right.
volunteers, and the staff. Cut the little ribbon, whatever.
And we might, could before the meeting, next meeting, get with the Duke representative and see what their options are, because it's kind of, what I'm hearing is it's kind of a thank you thing to Duke.
Duke and the volunteers.
Volunteers,
and the staff.
exactly, right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So probably need to see what schedule options the Duke Energy representative has,
mhm.
and then we'll work with those.
But
Sure.
so you're all are open towards the end of the month except for you, right, Wally?
Right. That
Early-
last,
end
that
of
last
October,
week
Early
of
November.
October 30th and 31st, I'm gonna
If
be
it's
there.
Halloween, we can make a head that looks like Wally or something, put mayor on it.
Put it on a pumpkin. Maybe we could get
Like a
somebody to
pumpkin
carve
head.
it, light it up.
There you go. All right.
We desperately need Julianne back.
Yeah, this is going downhill in a hurry.
Santa in there since you shot him down.
All
Okay,
right,
I'll get with Duke. I'll get back with you on next.
all right, do that. Okay.
I just got a
Anyone
quick
else?
question.
Yeah.
Do you know what day the Christmas parade is? Is it the first Saturday or the second Saturday?
I thought it was the 5th or 6th. I didn't respond to that.
5th and the 6th. I know.
No.
On that first week.
No,
maybe.
it's gotta be,
Probably the ninth.
I
the
think
second or the
the
ninth.
second or the ninth, yeah, I'll find out. The second sounds very familiar to me and I don't. know.
I just had a friend who wanted to know because they're coming down, so.
And I thought I had found that out, but I'll
Yeah,
double check for you.
I didn't see the email, so anyway, but I get lost in email easy.
Me too.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Andrew, you're up.
Nothing to report.
Hey. All right. That's nice, Andrew. And it's
Favorite
not even
ones.
7:30 yet. Hey. Okay, any more public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Brenda Diarva, 11661 Camp Drive. I have a couple comments and I have some questions.
Okay.
If I may, and I'll keep it very short. When you were talking about the zoning with the animals.
Mhm.
And I agree with farm animals, you know, nobody had thought of that. But there might be some language you might want to add in there, like exotic pets.
Yeah.
And then you talk about farm animals, you know, it's been popular, not as popular now, about the little pot-bellied pigs, little miniature horses. So just kind of bringing up some.
Miniature
there.
donkeys.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
I need some answers, if I may. I've had people reach out to me because of this 9 Island Cove. Evidently, it's a trigger issue out there.
Mhm.
And I haven't been privy to see all the documents, and obviously you're well versed on it. When the application was it made by the city, or is that letter was attached?
The letter I saw was on Dunnellon letterhead and signed by our mayor.
Okay, but the
And
application.
attached to it was this plan.
Right, but it was also when the documents that Mandy said, okay, it said that this letter that was up on the screen checked off whatever requirement was on the application for it. So it was part of the application. Something like that had to be submitted to check off that particular box on the application.
Well, I just had a thought, it may be viable, it may not, because it is such a trigger hot button issue and there's a push, I guess, for referendum and so forth. Would it be possible, instead of rescinding the entire application, ask to amend it and just put something very simple that they would be minimal oversight required by the city to maintain public safety and welfare, and that's it, with no other obligations. I think the overall concept that was created at the time when Mr. Marafino put in that application, I think it's a great idea, the overall concept. I don't know how it got into the weeds and off track and people trying to profit off of buying lots and so forth, but that was just a suggestion. And it might calm things down and, you know, that was just a suggestion, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
I wish we could get that full application and I'll try to find that
Yeah.
because we know these two letters, a letter and an attachment went. We don't know what the rest of the application looks like. And that's a little bothersome. You know, was that second letter spelling all this out, was that required of the application? We don't know. And I wish I could get that answer. So we'll keep working on that. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody out in Zoom land?
No one with their hand raised. sir.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we finished at 7:20.